My name is Olivia Bennett. I am 32 years old, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. I never thought the coldest words I'd ever hear would come from my own mother, in a voicemail. Have you ever replayed a voicemail so many times that your hands started shaking? What would you do if your own mother said, "Don't come back," like you were some stranger who overstayed their welcome? Would you beg for answers? Would you apologize, even if you didn't know what you did wrong? Or would you sit quietly and remember something she forgot, like whose name was actually on the trust, like who had signing authority, like who could stop a house deal with one signature? And what happens when the person she tried to exile controls everything? Stay with me, because this voicemail. It cost her more than she ever imagined. I was in my kitchen when it happened. Nothing dramatic, no storm outside, no music swelling in the background. Just me reheating leftover pasta and staring at my phone lighting up with Mom across the screen. I didn't answer. We hadn't been fighting, not exactly, but there had been tension. Conversations that ended too quickly, questions that went unanswered. She'd been distant lately, short, distracted, like someone mentally packing a suitcase. The call went to voicemail. I almost ignored it, but something told me to press play. "Olivia," she started. Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm people use when they've already made up their mind. "I think it's best if you don't come back. Not for a while, don't come back to the house." That was it. No explanation, no anger, no emotion, just dismissal. The microwave beeped behind me, but I didn't move. I replayed it once, then twice, then a third time like maybe I'd misheard it. Maybe there was more, maybe I missed context. There was. "Don't come back." You ever notice how silence can feel heavier than screaming? That's what this was. Not a fight, not an explosion, just erasure. And here's the part that made it strange. Legally. That wasn't just her house. Months earlier, when my dad passed, the estate had been placed into a family trust. My mom had asked me, very sweetly, very emotionally, to help manage some of the paperwork. "You're so organized," she'd said. "I trust you." I believed her. The trust had co-trustees, her and me. At the time, it felt symbolic, like she wanted me involved, like she saw me as capable. I didn't question it, but standing in my kitchen, phone still in my hand, something clicked. You can't just tell a co-trustee not to come back to a property held in shared trust authority. You can't just remove someone with a voicemail. The air shifted. My chest hurt, but not from heartbreak, from clarity. Why would she say that, unless something was happening at the house? Something she didn't want me to see, something moving fast enough that my presence would slow it down. I opened my laptop, logged into the trust portal. There it was, recent document activity. A property valuation update, a draft sale agreement uploaded 2 days ago, an escrow request pending review. She was selling the house, and I hadn't signed off. My hands started to shake, not from fear but from realization. That voicemail wasn't emotional, it was strategic. "Don't come back." Translation, "Don't interfere." She thought I'd cry. She thought I'd beg. She thought I'd accept being pushed aside like I always had. But she forgot one thing. I read every document before I sign it. And that voicemail, it wasn't just a rejection. It was a mistake. The more I looked into it, the clearer it became. This wasn't a casual thinking about selling situation. This was movement, fast movement. The property valuation had been updated less than a week ago. The listing hadn't even hit the public market yet, but there was already a private buyer attached to the draft agreement. Cash offer. Quick close, minimal contingencies. Too clean, too convenient, and way too fast for a house that had been in our family for 27 years. This wasn't just any property. This was the house my dad built his workshop in, the kitchen where every Thanksgiving photo was taken, the hallway with pencil marks tracking my height from age 6 to 18. And suddenly it was being treated like inventory. I clicked deeper into the documents. The projected sale price was high, just under $900,000. The market in Seattle had been strong. But what caught my attention wasn't the number. It was the urgency. Buyer requests 14-day close. 14 days. Who sells a family home in 14 days unless they're trying to avoid something? My phone buzzed, a notification from the trust's legal inbox, an automated update, escrow preparation in progress. Preparation, meaning she had already spoken to the realtor. Already spoken to the buyer. Already begun moving money, without calling me, without informing me, without the required co-trustee authorization. And then it clicked. The voicemail wasn't about distance. It wasn't about boundaries. It was about access. If I came back to the house, I'd see the appraisal paperwork on the dining table. I'd overhear phone calls. I'd ask questions, and questions slow things down. I leaned back in my chair and just stared at the screen. Why the rush? Was she in debt? Was someone pressuring her? Or worse, was she planning to move somewhere and didn't want me to know? Then I noticed something else. Under projected disbursements, there was a renovation reimbursement line item. Nearly $120,000 allocated before distribution. Renovation? There hadn't been any major renovations. A bathroom update, maybe. New paint. Nothing that justified six figures. Unless invoices were inflated, unless money had already moved, unless this sale wasn't just about downsizing, my stomach dropped. This wasn't grief. This wasn't emotional decision-making. This was financial maneuvering. And here's the part that made my chest tighten. The trust agreement was crystal clear. Major asset liquidation required dual authorization, 2 signatures. Mine and hers. She couldn't close without me. Unless she believed I wouldn't fight it. Unless she thought that voicemail would emotionally destabilize me enough to back off. Maybe she expected tears. Maybe she expected me to show up apologizing, begging to fix whatever I did wrong. Instead, I was staring at legal leverage. And the buyer. They were already lining up movers. The realtor had scheduled pre-inspections. Someone out there thought this house was theirs. But the paperwork wasn't complete. Not yet. And the person she told not to come back was the only thing standing between her and a rushed $900,000 exit. She tried to remove me from the house, what she didn't realize. She had just made me look closer at everything, and once I started looking, I couldn't unsee it. I didn't call her back, that's what she expected. Tears, anger. A long, emotional voicemail asking what I did wrong. But silence unsettles people. Instead of reacting, I made tea, sat down, opened my laptop again. I read the trust agreement from beginning to end, not emotionally but clinically. Every clause, every requirement, every signature rule. Section 4.2. Any sale, transfer, or liquidation of primary real estate assets requires written authorization from both co-trustees. Both. I checked the document draft in the portal. One signature line was completed. Hers. Mine was blank. She was moving forward assuming I'd either sign quickly or not notice until it was too late. That's when something shifted in me, not anger. Control, I called the trust attorney. His assistant answered first. Calm, professional. Hi, this is Olivia Bennett, co-trustee on the Parker Family Trust. I need to place a temporary hold on all pending transactions until further review. There was a pause. Is there a concern? Yes, I said evenly. Procedural compliance. That's the thing about legal language, it removes emotion, makes everything sound neutral, clean. Within 30 minutes, I received confirmation. Escrow preparation paused pending joint trustee confirmation. Paused, one word, but it changed everything. Then I called the bank that managed the trust account, verified my identity. Requested a transaction review freeze until documentation was clarified. Again, calm, professional, no drama, and just like that, movement stopped. I didn't slam a door. I didn't send a threatening text. I pressed pause. My phone buzzed an hour later. Unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail notification. Olivia, this is Sandra from Evergreen Realty. We're just trying to confirm your signature timeline so we can move forward. She sounded confused. Because from her perspective, everything had been moving smoothly. Until it was. Then came a text from my mom. What did you do? No greeting, no explanation, just that. I stared at it. There it was, not concern, not apology, control slipping. I responded with 3 words. We need to talk. She called immediately. I didn't answer. Let her sit in it. Let her wonder who else I'd spoken to, because here's what people don't understand about power, it isn't loud. It's procedural. She thought telling me don't come back would remove me from the equation. But legally, I was the equation, and the buyer, they were now calling the realtor. The realtor was calling my mom. The attorney was requesting clarification. Momentum had turned into friction, and friction makes noise. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to be erased. She tried to lock me out emotionally, so I locked the paperwork. And in that moment, she realized something she hadn't planned for. The daughter she dismissed understood the system better than she did. It didn't take long. The moment escrow paused, the family group chat lit up like a crime scene. My aunt, Olivia, what's going on? Your mom is extremely stressed. My cousin, why would you freeze the trust? That's petty. Petty. Funny how quickly you become the villain when you interrupt someone else's plan. I hadn't posted anything, hadn't defended myself. But somehow the narrative was already written. I was emotional. I was overreacting. I was punishing my mother. No one asked why I did it. They just assumed I shouldn't have. Then my uncle called. Your mom says you're trying to sabotage the sale. Sabotage, interesting word. I'm enforcing the trust agreement, I replied calmly. He went quiet for a second. That wasn't the dramatic answer he expected. She's already promised the buyer, he added. Promised? That word hit differently. You can't promise what you don't fully control. By that evening, my mom finally called from her own number. This time I answered. Her voice wasn't calm anymore. Why would you embarrass me like this? She snapped. Embarrass. That was her concern. Not legality, not transparency. Image. You left me a voicemail telling me not to come back, I said evenly. Then tried to sell a trust asset without informing me. Silence, not the peaceful kind. The calculating kind. I was going to tell you, she said. When? Another silence. That's when I decided to ask the question that had been sitting in my chest all day. What's the $120,000 renovation reimbursement for? Her breathing changed, just slightly. It's repairs, she replied quickly. Can you send the invoices? Another pause, longer this time. I don't have them in front of me. Of course not, because here's what I'd done earlier that afternoon, something no one in the family knew yet. I had requested a breakdown from the trust's financial manager. All outgoing transfers over the past 12 months. The numbers didn't match the renovation story. There were withdrawals. Transfers labeled consulting. Payments to an LLC I didn't recognize. The LLC, registered 3 months ago. Under a name that sounded suspiciously like someone my mom had been working with. Suddenly, the sale felt less like downsizing and more like covering tracks. When I told her I'd be requesting full documentation before releasing any funds, her tone shifted again. You don't trust me, she asked quietly. That question almost made me laugh. Trust. You don't send don't come back voicemails and expect blind trust. You change the locks emotionally, I replied. I'm just checking the paperwork. The next day, the family chat was quieter. Because the attorney had emailed all trustees requesting clarification on undocumented reimbursements. Now it wasn't Olivia being dramatic. It was compliance review. The narrative was cracking. And the people who rushed to defend her, they stopped texting. Because when paperwork enters the room, opinions leave. By the end of the week, the energy had shifted. No one was calling me petty anymore. They were calling me careful. And my mom, she wasn't yelling. She was nervous, because the story she told everyone about me overreacting. Didn't explain the missing invoices, and when truth starts slipping out in small pieces, it doesn't ask permission. It just lands. By the second week, everything felt different, not explosive. Not dramatic, controlled. The buyer had backed off temporarily. The realtor stopped calling me altogether. The attorney scheduled a formal review meeting, and my mom. She stopped speaking in accusations. She started speaking in caution. It's amazing how quickly someone's tone changes when they realize the other person isn't reacting emotionally. They're responding legally. I didn't blast her on social media. I didn't send screenshots to the family. I didn't cry to relatives for sympathy. I requested documentation. And documentation is dangerous when the story doesn't match the math. The financial manager finally sent over a preliminary breakdown. The so-called renovation reimbursement had no attached contractor agreements, no licensed vendor records, just transfers, large ones, split into smaller amounts, sent over months, to that same LLC. When I looked deeper, the LLC's mailing address matched a condo downtown, not a construction company, a residential unit. I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. This wasn't oversight. This was structure. The sale suddenly made perfect sense. Liquidate the house fast, label expenses as reimbursements, close before questions get asked, and remove the co-trustee who reads fine print. Don't come back. It wasn't emotional rejection, it was operational. When the attorney meeting happened, it was virtual, calm, professional. My mom logged in 5 minutes late. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. When the attorney asked for documentation supporting the reimbursement line items, she stumbled. Said records were misplaced, promised to gather everything. The attorney's response was neutral. Until documentation is provided, no distributions will be authorized. There it was. Not punishment, procedure. After the call ended, my mom didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She just said one sentence quietly before logging off. You've made this very difficult. And that's when I understood something clearly. People call it difficult when they can't control it. She thought power meant being the loudest voice in the room. But power isn't volume. It's leverage. It's knowing when to speak and when to press pause. It's understanding systems better than the people trying to use them. Weeks later, the buyer formally withdrew. The house stayed off market. The trust entered audit review. And the family, they stopped picking sides, because sides don't matter when facts are involved. One evening, my phone buzzed again. Her name, I answered. This time there was no sharpness. I shouldn't have left that voicemail, she said quietly. It wasn't a full apology. But it was the first crack in the armor. She had tried to shut me out. Instead, she handed me clarity. And here's the truth no one likes to admit. The person you try to exclude often becomes the one who sees everything. She thought telling me not to come back would remove me from the house. What it did instead, it reminded me that I was never just visiting. I was written into the foundation. And foundations don't move, they hold. Now I need to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have stayed quiet? Would you have signed the papers just to keep the peace? Or would you have frozen everything the moment you felt something wasn't right? Drop a freeze IT in the comments if you believe in protecting what's legally yours. Or comment, let it go if you think family should come before contracts. And be honest, did I go too far? If this story had your heart racing, make sure you like this video, because part 2 gets even deeper. Documents surface, conversations shift, and someone finally tells the truth about that LLC. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because sometimes the real drama doesn't start with a fight, it starts with a voicemail. Studio.